Hey guys, so today we're going to go into our parts car and take apart the dash so we can put the manual gauge cluster into our project car. So one of the main reasons why I actually bought this manual CB7 was because it was the only one I'd seen in Australia in about a year and a half of looking. But I wanted to be able to get the manual cluster and some of the brake pedal assembly and the clutch pedal assembly, as well as just some other small things, but like predominantly the gauge cluster and the brake pedal arm from a manual. So to take the dash apart, you can use a pick like this, or a flathead screwdriver. I've chosen a pick, but we need to take out the air vents. So just come on the side and pop them out. This might be a little bit easier with a flathead. If I get a flathead, just pop them out. Yep, just like that. So behind these, if you can see in there are screws. There are screws in there. Same with all these buttons here. Take them out because there are screws behind them as well. You'll have to take apart this whole dash, which was held in by Phillips head screws. I think from memory there's about 12, so just have a Phillips head on hand. And we'll also take off the roof and cruise module. There's a screw behind there. And then also behind this light dimmer, there'll also be another screw. So I'm going to finish taking this off and I'll get back to you. So just a tip when taking apart this all these plastic bezels is this little ashtray. You're going to want to push this tab in, pull it out. And then underneath, you're going to have two screws. I've already taken one out, but the other one it's quite hard to get to with a normal sized screwdriver. So what I've used is just a 1/4 inch with a drill bit on the end, so I can just get it on there and then unscrew it that way. And I think I'll end up doing that for most of them. So I just ran into another thing. We've got two 8mm bolts underneath. They're just onto that silver metal bracket there. And then once you've undone that, you should be able to just pull everything off pretty much. So you can see it's coming off here. I'm not sure why the front isn't coming off, but I'll get back to it in a sec. So you'll be able to just pull the radio and the little tray underneath just out and unplug. There'll be two connectors. You'll be the one main connector and then the one for the antenna. And it'll just be bolted on. I'm choosing to leave that connected for now, but so I figured out the reason why the trim wasn't coming undone was there's two bolts at the very top of the two top air vents. So once you undo those two, the two Phillips head, that should just fully come off. And to get the last of the cluster bezel off, there's another two Phillips heads. And then this whole black plastic bezel should just pop off. Lo and behold, I was wrong again. There is another Phillips head underneath the top right air vent. So I'll take that off and then hopefully it should all come off. So once that plastic bezel comes off, you're gonna have to make sure that this cord is disconnected because this one will stop you from being able to pull it off. But after it's off, we have 4 Phillips heads. 1, 2, 3, 4. And hopefully this cluster should come out. All right, so we've taken off the 4 Phillips heads. We'll also undo this plug on the left. So we'll just pry up and pull, and then we'll do the same thing on the right side, and then hopefully this will come off. So we undid the bottom left, and then we've angled this one out so we can undo this top one here. So that one's now out. And now it'll just be a challenge of getting that bottom right one out, which seems to be a different bit of a clip to undo it, but we'll see how we go. So we got the dash out in the end. That bottom right plug was a bit tricky, this one here, but what we were able to do was just reach underneath through the steering column and push out this loom, and when that was pushed out, we'll way more accessible to push that clip in and pull it out. It just, because it's a 30-year-old car, I was just really stuck in there trying to pull it out once the clip was undone. So with the cluster out of the parts car, we'll probably clean this one up. Now would actually be the time, if I did have them, to change or replace the LEDs or the bulbs in the back. I know that you can do an LED conversion on these things, but honestly at the moment I'm not looking to do that. I still might go to a Haltech IC7 dash in the future. But one thing I'll probably do is wind this back from 363,000 kilometers just to match what the chassis of the project car is, which is I think 170,000 or something. So after a bit of thought, I've decided that the only real reason I'm changing the manual clustering is purely for this face. So what I might do is, because the automatic has the gears down the middle here, so I might actually just take this face off and put it on my cluster, therefore it's still factory and all the Ks and everything, and even this cover is a bit yucky. You can't really see it too well in the light, but it's very obvious when you're in the car. So I'm thinking that maybe I'll just use my original cluster and just swap this one face over. And to get that face off, we're gonna have to take off these 3 screws here and these 3 screws here. And here is that face removed. So you can actually see, if you turn this one around, that in the middle, they still have the gear selector, but it's just, this face does block it off. So I'm pretty sure that this will work perfectly for what I'm trying to do. So we're back in the actual project car, and the whole reason we're doing this is to get rid of that column of the gear selector on the right face. So we'll copy what we did in the parts car, and we'll take off all the Phillips heads, we'll take off all the buttons and get the Phillips head behind those. We'll take off the air vents and get the Phillips head behind those as well. Same on this side. And then we've also got those 2 8mm brass bolts underneath here, which don't seem to be there anymore. So maybe I never put them back in when I changed the head unit initially. But yeah, so we'll do all this off camera, and then I'll get back to you when I've got both gauge clusters out of the car. So we got the cluster out of the project car, and as you can see, the face that we're changing is a bit different. It's got that gear select column down the middle, but everything else is the same. And obviously not having that sports mode, which is a automatic only feature. So we'll take off this plastic cover just by pressing these tabs and pulling out. And then same as getting it off, we'll undo those 6 screws, and then the old face will come off and the new one will go on, and then we'll be able to put it all back into the car. Okay, so as you can see, this face has a lot of scratches just from being 30 years old and improper maintenance. Now, being an ex-car detailer, I've got my Rupes 3-inch cordless and a polishing compound. So we'll go over this face and we'll polish this out. It's a bit of a concave face, so it'll be a bit harder to polish, but it should come out really good. I'll get back to you with the results. Okay, so we're done with the polish and it's coming out okay. You can see that there's still a lot of scratches, and it's just due to the concave nature of the face and me having a 3-inch. It would be a lot easier if I had the smaller 1-inch pad, because then I'll be able to really get to the contour of the face. But it's a lot better than what it used to be, and I can always polish it in the car if I ever want to. So I did the polish, and then I also went over with Geon Prep just to get rid of all the polishing compounds, but it's come up pretty well. Pretty happy with it. All right, so we're gonna put our original cluster back in with the new manual face. Put the cover over it, make sure all the screws are tight, put it back into the car, and then put everything back together, and we should be golden. Okay, so now we have the gauge cluster back in and the bezels all screwed back in. We've deleted the AC button, which would be here because I removed it as I'm going turbo. There's a little cable that holds this in. This was very hard to get back in, but it was done in the end. I deleted cruise control, so I've always unplugged this so it won't illuminate anymore. But I probably will remove this in future when I get fog lights. I put the fog light button here. So I'll turn on the car, make sure the cluster's working properly, indicators, high beam, and no check engine light either. So we're all good. The completed auto to manual gauge cluster is done. Thanks, guys.